Would you now please welcome our guest speaker for today, Mrs. Deanna Hartrick.
Good afternoon. It's an honor and a privilege to be chosen by the Illini West class of 2017 to speak to you at your commencement today. Of all the ways I imagined this day for our family, this was not it. Like the rest of the families in the gym today who have enjoyed a weekend of laughter and tears, I imagined a day of excitement and rejoicing that we had finally gotten our child to this day. I'm sure most of your parents have said at some point today, "How did we get here? It went by so fast." Where I imagined saying to Dean, "How in the world did Kale ever pass math?" If you've ever seen the video of him singing in geometry, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm sure Brady and a few others could attest to that fact. Most graduation speeches are to prepare you for the adult world and all the challenges you face. But honestly, I don't need to do that. You've already faced more challenges in your 4 years at Illini West, and nothing more brutal in this world to watch a friend lose their life to a disease most adults my age struggle to understand. Just over a year ago, we gathered in this very gym together to say goodbye to your friend and classmate and my son, Kale Hartrick. I remember at the visitation so many of you coming through the line and sharing your condolences. Many of you I already knew because I was your second grade teacher at Dallas City. Several of you I knew from Kale playing sports at La Harpe and the Dallas City Co-op. And the rest of you I met when Kale began his freshman year at Illini West. I knew Kale would have no trouble fitting in at Illini West, and it only took 3 months to get a phone call from the office to let me know how well he was adjusting. I received a call from the vice principal saying that Kale, Aiden, Chase, Clayton, and a few girls who shall remain nameless were in the primary gym riding tricycles and drinking water that they did not have permission to drink. I thought he was joking and I said, "You said he was drinking water, right?" Not amused, he let me know that the behavior was unacceptable. I assured him that I would talk to Kale and we would pay for whatever damages occurred. When Kale got home that night, I laid into him about his behavior. "Your sister has been at that school for 3 years and I didn't even know who the vice principal was. You're here 3 months and I get a phone call." Of course, he blamed Aiden, Chase, and Clayton. Mostly Aiden. That night I said to him and to Dean, "I don't get it. We have spent his whole life teaching him right from wrong, and I don't think he hears a word we say." Fast forward 3 years, and I stand here before you graduates, parents, family, faculty, and staff, and tell you that my son did hear what I said, and through his short life, he taught me more lessons than I could ever imagine. My favorite quote now is, "While we teach our children all about life, our children teach us what life is all about." Graduates, you certainly have taught the adults here today what lessons in strength, compassion, and the ability to carry on and finish your academic career at Illini West since losing your classmate and friend. And today I would like to share with you a few of the lessons Kale taught me, and I hope you will remember as you move forward in your adult life. The first lesson I want to share is about letting others know how much they mean to you. As parents, we have given you a tremendous gift called a cell phone. Most of the time, you use it for Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and on a rare occasion, answer it when we call you. Most of the time, we as adults ask you to put your phone down once in a while and pay attention to life. And while I certainly hope that you do that, I can tell you that Kale taught me a thing or two about texting. One day on our way to another appointment in Iowa City, Kale was sitting in the back seat with his headphones on, probably listening to Drake. Suddenly, Dean's phone dinged that he had a text message. When he looked down, he started dying laughing and he said, "Look at this." It was a text from Kale that said, "Good morning, beautiful." Dean said, "Watch this," and he texts back, "Right back at you, handsome." A few seconds later, from the back seat, we heard Kale say, "Seriously, Dad?" Dean said, "What? I thought this was our new thing." He said, "No, my bad. That text was for Maddie." I said, "Do you send this text every morning?" And Kale said, "Well, yeah." I said, "You mean to tell me that for a year now you have been texting her every morning to tell her she is beautiful?" His face got red and he smiled. "Seriously, Dean, you could learn something from your son," I said. We laughed about this story a lot, but what an incredible message it sends. Class of 2017, I hope you have someone in your life that you start your morning by letting them know how important they are. And I pray that you have someone who lets you know how beautiful you are. Texting can be a fun way to communicate with those you love, but at moments it can help you through the darkest of moments. In the fall of 2016, when Kale's cancer had returned and he started a new chemo, I was told by the doctors that it was just a routine exam. It was his first day back to work. It was my first day back to work, and I didn't want to miss the appointment. Dean assured me that it would be fine and he would take him. The appointment was anything but routine. Dean called to tell me that the doctors had had a conversation with Kale that he would most likely not beat this cancer. They wanted to discuss his wishes and how to move forward. As you can imagine, this was devastating for Kale to hear. As soon as I got off the phone with Dean, I completely broke down, but all I could do was think of Kale. I grabbed my phone, but I couldn't pull myself together enough to call him because I knew he would hear the shakiness in my voice. So I decided to text him. I told him he was going to be the exception to the rule. He would beat this, and that I loved him. I needed him to know right away that his family was going to get him through this. He texted me right back, "I know, Mom. I'm going to be fine. I love you too." Graduates, you have people in your life who want to do the same for you. They are a text or a phone call away. Whether or not you realize it, they are your biggest supporters. They want to be there to celebrate. They want to help you through the day-to-day routine, and especially when you've had the worst day you can imagine. In the next few years, you're going to experience lots of new things. A new college, a new job, a new roommate, a new boyfriend or girlfriend, and those you love and have watched you grow want to hear about it. So text them once in a while. Share with them your new experiences, and don't be surprised if they quickly text you back. They'll jump at the chance to let you know how much you're missed and how much you're loved. And if you don't have anyone to let you know how great you are, I'll have Dean send you a text. The second lesson that Kale taught me in life was to say I'm good even when life is not. Telling your child that they have cancer is so incredibly hard, but hearing that you have cancer had to be even worse. I always waited for the day that Kale would get mad, scream and yell, and tell me how unfair life was, but he never did, not once in 18 months. If you've ever spent any time in the medical world, you know that you must see several people before the doctor, the nurse, the nurse's assistant, the social worker, the doctor's intern, and finally the doctor. We went through many routines, and every time one of the medical professionals would say, "So how are you today, Kale?" With a smile on his face, he would say, "I'm good." Never a complaint or a hesitation. Kale's doctor was so impressed that she often thought something was wrong with him. And she had never had a patient take on cancer with such an easygoing attitude. That doesn't mean some days weren't rough. They absolutely were. But Kale made the decision to stay positive no matter what the day would bring. Stephen Covey once said, "Just as we develop our physical muscles through overcoming opposition, we develop our character muscles by overcoming challenges and adversity." Many times throughout this life, challenges will come your way. Maybe not cancer diagnosis challenges, but job challenges, marriage challenges, parenting challenges, friendship challenges, and spiritual challenges will all come your way, and you must develop your character muscles. I pray that when those days come and your muscles are tired and weak and you're ready to give up, that you remember the words, "I'm good," and find strength to carry on. Just this week, I received a letter from Kale's doctor. She wanted me to know that she had shared Kale's case at a conference in Canada. Doctors all over the world are learning about him and about his cancer. And while this is amazing news to us, what she said after meant even more. She said, "His case has taught me so much medically about cancer, but Kale taught me so much more non-medical things than I ever believed possible. When you choose to say, 'I'm good,' when life is not, amazing things still happen." The final lesson that Kale taught me took his whole life to develop. It was the lesson of knowing who he was and who he belonged to. Several of you graduating today have known Kale since kindergarten. You knew him early on as a brother, a friend, a competitor, and a humorous individual. I was often on the other side of that humor. Like the first day I was interning with the principal to fill my administration degree. And guess who shows up in the principal's office? That's right, my son. Kale had wrote an inappropriate word on Robbie Brown's notebook. And of course it was misspelled. Nothing like documenting the first referral of your internship when it's committed by your own kid. Showing his talent at school, the random outbursts of songs, and his hysterical exchanges between the squad took years to develop. Each of you graduating today have moments in the last 12 years that have shaped who you are as well. In front of me are athletes, band and choir members, honor students, club members, and the list goes on of the roles you have played up until this point in life. Sometimes the roles you played were not necessarily the ones you wanted. I remember one night after a basketball game, Dean and I were discouraged that Kale had not played at all. He sat on the bench the whole game, but instead of sulking and being upset, he got the bench involved in some pretty funny antics, all while supporting his team. Each time one of his teammates came out of the game, he was the first one off the bench to give them a high five. When we got in the car for the drive home, I said to him, "I'm so proud of the way you support your team and the crazy stuff you do on the bench." He smiled and said, "Yeah, Mom, I know my role." I was so caught off guard by that. Sometimes as adults, we often forget our role and how to support our teammates, whether it be family members or coworkers. Sometimes we just want to be the center of attention and not focus on others. Sometimes we forget how easy we can get wrapped up in the competition of life and lose sight of what's really important. As you graduate today, your role in life is about to change. You will be free to make decisions that will shape who you become in the future. Many of you will become spouses, moms and dads, co-workers, church members, homeowners, voters, and community organizers. Who you are is every bit as important as whose you are. Many of you know that throughout our journey with Kale's cancer that our faith in God played the ultimate role in guiding us to where we are today. Kale is a child of God, and I saw that every day he was growing up, but even more so throughout his cancer journey. It's through the hard times that your faith will be challenged. I'm sure there have been many times in this last year when you have asked, "Why Kale?" and expected an answer. Believe me, I have too. And then one day I read these words that helped me. The answer to why doesn't help us heal, but knowing that God's glory can be displayed even in the brokenness of our lives gives us hope despite our circumstance. I promise you, you will find more purpose and joy in your life when you set aside the why and begin to look at how Kale's life can be an example of faith in action. In just a few moments, you will walk across the stage and receive a diploma that you've earned by completing classes in all academic areas, such as English, math, and science. Kale's sisters will walk across the stage and accept his diploma. He did not earn his diploma the same way you did. You sat through hours of classes and took notes. He sat through hours of chemo and radiation when his dad and I took notes of his symptoms. You had assignments each week to turn in and receive grades. His assignments were to show up each week to have blood drawn, needles changed, and wait for results from a PET scan. You had tests that measured your success in a class. He had the ultimate test in endurance and faith, and his success in that will be forever measured. Although the paths were different for all of you, today is a recognition of your hard work and commitment to finish together as one class. Seniors, it has been a pleasure to watch you grow, and I can't wait to see where life leads you. Our family will live vicariously through you. We will not have a college move-in day this fall. We won't watch our son get married or celebrate his accomplishments through work and family, but we will be able to celebrate those things with you. The last conversation we had with Cale in the hospital, when his dad said to him, "Mom and Dad love you, your sisters love you, Maddie loves you, your friends love you." Cale's last words were, "I love you guys." Every one of you sitting here today had an impact on his life, and he chose his last words to show you just how much. Let love guide you through the good times and the bad times that life will bring you. Love those who are in your life now, love those who will come into your life in the future, and always keep those who you love who leave this life before you safely tucked away in your heart. In closing, Cale taught me many lessons in this life, but the one lesson I'm still learning is how to live without him. Managing grief is a day-to-day experience, as you well know. I've read several books on grief this past year, but one of the best ones I recently read by Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook. In her book, she tells of her husband, Dave, who died unexpectedly while they were on vacation in Mexico. "I could relate to the suddenness of your world shattering in an instant and not knowing how to go on. I understood the unrelenting fog of those of us who are grieving go through and how we must make decisions that we would rather not." She tells in her book how a few weeks after her husband's death, a father and child activity was approaching, and Sheryl had to come up with someone to plan to fill in for her husband. In her grief, she cried, "And I want my husband. I don't want somebody else." Her friend put his arm around her and he said, "Option A is not available. So let's just kick the crap out of option B." Option A would be for Cale to be here today and have spent his senior year with all of you playing basketball, going to prom, and singing during class when he should have been studying. Option A would be to look over and see him sitting between Isaiah and Alec in the second row. But option A is not available. Life is never perfect. We all live some form of option B. So in memory of your classmate and my son, class of 2017, go out there and kick the crap out of it. And know we love you guys.